Where's Bunk?
Bonk will be. I sent a message to Bonk, so he should be here soon enough. Ish.
Ish.
He'll join when
I mean,
he can. He'll join when he
I
can.
can handle the Colorado representing in his
Oh,
absence.
You'll join the. All right. So, of course, for those who are tuning in, and of course everybody's going to be tuning in over time as we go throughout the night. So tonight we're going to be watching the ABC presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Now, of course, I believe everyone here is under the impression that we all believe that it would be best if all parties could lose, but unfortunately somebody does have to win tonight. So, before we really get going, in the next 2 minutes before the debate starts, what is like a 30-second breakdown for each of you of how you feel tonight is going to go?
Well, first off, there's going to be a lot of equivocating. They're going to go back and forth and blame each other. And not much policy will get talked. It'll just be tons of blaming each other, even though both of them are to blame for different things. Kamala Harris currently in the administration, so a lot of things can be said of why haven't you tried to do this. Trump was president for 4 years before, so the same thing can be said of him. So it's I see a bunch of back and forth and nothing of substance.
Juliana?
Agreed. Honest, in my little heart of hearts, I think that whoever steps on the least rakes will probably be declared the winner.
Yep.
I, as everyone else on this esteemed panel, despise both of them. But my little heart of hearts really wants to see a little bit of karma come in for Grandpa Joe. You know, he got nailed last time because he was the doddering old guy, and it's almost fitting that now the doddering old one is the salmon Svengali, so, or the orange Julius Caesar, whatever you want to call him.
Orange
So yeah.
Caesar, yep. All right. So I am
And
going
your
to,
thoughts?
My thoughts. Well, I actually really concur with whoever has the least gaffes, whoever steps on the least rakes will probably be declared the winner. I think that Kamala will probably have some sort of word salad in multiple points during the debate. I think that Trump will have maybe a couple good points, but I think because the moderators are going to be less even-keeled than in the CNN debate, that he might lose his cool, and you might hear some rambling and raving that he tries to do over the muting. So that's kind of my prediction, but we'll see. And of course, it is time for the debate now, so let's see what the night holds for us. Let's watch and move on.
Stable prices.
It's funny that ABC again might be more hostile than CNN.
Historic.
The only thing I could have thought would have been more
ABC
hostile
News
than
presidential
CNN
debate
towards Trump would maybe be in MSNBC, but
and Lindsay Davis.
we shall see.
Indeed.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss.
Juliana?
Let me mute that.
How do you mute that?
No. So do you got your screen up here?
Oh, you're watching on your phone, aren't you? Oh, hey, Bonk. Bonk's here.
So, Shrewd, you gonna share the screen in
Oh,
Discord.
yes, I
Thank you.
apologize. I will totally do that.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin
Good
tonight with the
evening.
issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the
Are we
economy
ready
and the
for a
cost
shit
of
show?
living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4
Definitely.
years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So
Well,
I
Kamala has won the
was
tooth
raised
whitening
as a middle-class
debate.
kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American
do you
people.
look? Any
And that
new
is why
salad?
I imagine and
Oh my
have
God.
actually a plan to
That's
build what I
Jeff
call an
Dunham's
opportunity
Walter
economy.
right there.
Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too
Oh
expensive
man,
for
she's
far too
blowing
many
the first
people.
question already,
We
and
know
she
that
knew what it
young
was going to be.
families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long
Which will
time,
be
so
partially
that those young
refundable.
families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. I was actually
The
my
funny
mother
thing
raised
is,
my
her
sister
handing
and
out
me,
money for
but there was a
first-time
woman who
home buyers
helped
is
raise
not a
us. We
bad
call her our
program. It's been
second
shown to
mother. She
work
was a
on a
small
municipal
business owner.
level,
I love our
but
small
she doesn't
businesses.
know how to fucking
My plan
communicate
is
it.
to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that
Also
I call
known
the
as
Trump
PPP
sales
loans
tax,
for the Small
which would be a
Business Administration.
20% tax
Bingo.
on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result
I feel
for
attacked.
middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the
Actually,
world.
went conservative. It wasn't
And
4,000. It's about
the tariff will
9,600.
be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact,
And
they never
spent
took the
billions and
tariff off
billions of
because there was so
dollars.
much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were
Which
at
has cost
21%, but that's being
164,000
generous
jobs
because
and
many things
$80
are
billion
50, 60,
to the
70,
consumer.
and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums.
Inflation
And
in
they're
our
coming
nation.
in and they're
Apparently he doesn't
taking
remember the 1930s.
jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans
entire
and
decade.
Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very
Well, I'm
soon.
talking about
And you see what's
criminals.
happening. You see what's happening
he
with
wanted to
towns
release
throughout
them
the
all from
United
jail.
States. You look at
Yeah.
Springfield, Ohio. You look at
that inflation
Aurora
thing's gonna stick
in
with me for a
Colorado.
moment because he
They
was
are
alive
taking
for
over
some of
the
the
towns. They're
after effects of
taking
that
over
bullshit.
buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest
smart.
economies
Took a
in the
bold
history
strategy
of our
going with the
country.
disproven
I'll do it
dog
again
eating
and
in
even better.
Venezuelan
We are going to
street
get to
gangs.
immigration
That's a
and border
bold
security
move,
during this
Cotton.
debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the
until it
Great
went crashing
Depression.
into the ground
Donald
because,
Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy
Wait, so
since
Donald Trump
the
left
Civil
them
War.
COVID? Did Donald
And what
Trump
we
create
have
COVID?
done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected
If
again.
he had the balls.
I believe very strongly that the
Yeah. I
American
gotta be
people
honest,
want
like, I
a
don't like her,
president
but
who
she's
understands the
nailing this fucking
importance
answer.
of
She's
bringing
doing well.
us together, knowing we have so much more in common than
I am
what separates
surprised she's
us.
not
And I
cackling
pledge
like
to
she
you to
normally
be a
does.
president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a
Just
minute to
going by
respond.
the side.
Number one, I
by
have
side.
nothing to do, as you know, and as she
Biden
knows
or
better than
something.
anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
'Cause you're a chicken.
That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it.
'Cause
This
you're
was a group
abandoning
of people that got
conservatives.
together. They came up with some ideas.
So
I guess
screw
some good, some
conservatives,
bad.
right?
But
Yep.
it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a
Ability
pandemic.
back
He doesn't
And the
need any
pandemic was
visuals.
not since 1917,
The
where 100
visuals are
million people
not
died.
helping
Has
the
there been
orange
anything like it?
buffoon
We did
at
a
all.
phenomenal job with the pandemic.
Actually, I was just
We
thinking the
handed them
opposite, right?
over
The way
a
they've got this split
country where
screen
the
set up,
economy
so
and where
he's
the
so
stock
much
market
taller
was
than she
higher than
is.
it was
And he
before
was
the
bragging a
pandemic
couple
came in.
days ago
Nobody's ever seen
that
anything
he
like
had,
it. We made
he had won the thing
ventilators
where
for
they're
the
working
entire
everything lifts,
world.
they're
We
working
got
everything
gowns, we got
stands,
masks,
and
we
he
did
thought that
things
was a
that
good
nobody
thing, and
thought
I'm like,
possible. And people
that
give me
will
credit
hurt
for
him
rebuilding the
because,
military. They
it
give
will
me
look
credit
like
for a
he's
lot of things,
bullying a
but
woman
not
half
enough
his
credit for the
size,
great job we did
which,
with the
you know, men
pandemic.
are
But the only jobs
predisposed
they
to
got were
protection.
bounce
Women
back
don't,
jobs.
you know,
These were
like that
jobs
imagery,
bounced
like
back,
that-
and
that
it
was gonna
bounced
be
back,
really
and it
bad
went
for
to
them,
their
but the way they're doing
benefit.
this split
But
screen,
I
they've
was the one
actually
that
got her
created
about
them.
an inch
They know
taller
it,
than
and so
them.
does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd
He needs to
invite you to
push
know
back on the
that
inflation,
Donald Trump actually
even though
has
he
no plan
caused a
for
lot of it.
you because he is
He
more
needs- he needs
interested
to
in
push back
defending
on that
himself than he is
because
in
they
looking
didn't
out
help.
for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top
That's the
professors,
real
think my
opportunity to
plan
point
is
out
a
that he
brilliant
went to
plan. It's a
Wharton and
great
his own
plan.
alma
It's a
mater
plan
says
that's
his
going to
ideas are
bring
bad.
up our
my
worth,
God.
our value
I
as a
went to
country. It's going to
Wharton.
make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our, for our
he's
country.
self-owned.
And just to finish off, she
paid for it
doesn't
all.
have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice
Oh, man,
President
he's
brought up
rattled.
your tariffs.
Look at the
You
way his eyes are
responded, and let's
darting
drill
left
down on
and
this
right.
because
And his
your
shoulders
plan
is
is what
scrunched
she
up.
calls is essentially
He's
a
fucking
national sales
rattled.
tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed
Evidently,
out
Tulsi
here,
didn't do
on
a good
foreign
job
imports
of
across the
debate
board. You
prepping
recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs
He's
up to
hunched
20%
down.
on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president
And
ever.
Mexico will pay for
China
the
was
wall.
paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5
For those
years
who are
now
listening to the
under their
stream
administration.
and don't know
We are
this,
going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds
my
of
train of
billions
thought
of
there.
dollars. I had no
come back to it in
inflation,
a second.
virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country,
right.
because
The
I've never
20%
seen a
tariff he's
worse period
talking
of
about.
time.
20%
People
tariffs
can't
don't
go out and buy
offset
cereal
or
or
inspire
bacon
people to
or
move,
eggs or anything else.
if the
The
cost of
people
labor,
of our country
which
are
your labor overhead is always
absolutely
your
dying with
highest
what they've
input,
done. They've
is
destroyed the economy.
85% lower
And all you have to do is look at a
somewhere
poll.
else. A 20%
The
tariff
polls
doesn't
say
change that
80 and
calculus.
85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Also worth noting,
Well,
he's
let's be
talking about
clear
bacon
that
and
the
eggs
Trump
and things like that.
administration
It was under his
resulted
watch
in a
that China
trade
bought
deficit,
most
one of the
pork and
highest we've
chicken,
ever seen in the history of America.
ranches,
He invited
agribusinesses
trade
here in this
wars.
country
You
that
want to talk
have
about his
resulted in some of
deal
these costs
with
going up.
China?
So-
What he ended up doing is,
Yeah, they
under
bought
Donald
out
Trump's
Smithfield.
presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based
Dean,
technology so that we
I
win the race on
remember
AI, on quantum
that
computing,
when
focusing on what we
JFK
need to do
debated
to
Richard
support
Nixon.
America's workforce,
If
so that we
you
don't end
only
up having
listened to
on the
the
short end
audio,
of the
you'd have
stick
thought
in terms
Nixon
of
won.
workers' rights.
looking
But what
at
Donald
the
Trump did,
video
let's
of
talk
it,
about this, with
Kennedy
COVID,
was
is he
young
actually
and
thanked
forthright,
President
and
Xi
Nixon was
for what
old
he did
and
during
sour
COVID. Look at
and
his
mean.
tweet.
I'm getting
Thank
those
you,
vibes
President
right now.
Xi,
Trump
exclamation
is
point.
old,
When we
sour,
know that
surly,
Xi
and
was
mean.
responsible for lacking and
Nixon
not
had a
giving
face
us
for radio and a
transparency
voice
about
for
the
print.
origins of
True.
COVID.
President Trump will let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from
I gotta
Taiwan.
say,
We
like, I don't
hardly
know
make
what
chips
kind of
anymore
drugs they
because
gave
of
Kamala.
philosophies like they have
Jesus
and
Christ, this is a
policies
whole
like
different
they have.
person.
I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd
point of
change
fact,
it.
Taiwan
And
Semiconductor
it will
has
be
a
the
plant
end of our
in
country.
Phoenix.
She's a
Matter of
Marxist.
fact, they just had a
Everybody
news
knows
story
she's a
this week
Marxist.
that they
Her
just
father's a
received full
Marxist professor in
operationality there.
economics,
So
and he
he was
taught her
right.
well.
They
But
were
when you
actually
look at
buying-
what she's done
It was
to our
Taiwan
country,
Semiconductor,
and
the
when you
company,
look at
but the
these
chips were coming
millions
from
and
Arizona.
millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot
Marxist
higher
drink.
than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing
Cheers.
to our country. They're
Oh,
criminals.
man,
Many
she
of
looks
these
like she
people
wants to
coming in are
cackle, but
criminals.
she's actually-
And that's bad for
Containing
our
herself.
economy, too. You know, you mentioned
You know-
before, we'll
you
talk
know
about
what? Whatever
immigration
this
later.
is,
Well,
like,
bad
man,
immigration
they
is the
coached
worst
the
thing that
shit
can
out of
happen to
her.
our economy. They have, and she has
They did a good job
destroyed
coaching her.
our country
Trump
with policy
either-
that's
well,
insane.
Tulsi is
Almost
meh,
policy that you
but
say
Trump probably
they
didn't
have to
even
hate our
listen to her when
country.
she
President
coached
Trump,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to
Somebody
the issue
said DeSantis
of
was
abortion.
down at
President Trump, you
Mar-a-Lago
often
helping
touted that
Trump,
you were able
too.
to kill Roe v.
And
Wade.
Trump
wanted
wanted
Last year, you
flashcards.
said that you were
I'm
proud
calling
to be
bullshit
the
on that
most
one.
pro-life
I think
president
so.
in American
He's way too
history.
busy.
Then last month, you said that your administration would
Either
be
that
great
or
for
if he
women
was
and their
there, Trump didn't
reproductive
listen
rights.
to it
In your home
because
state
it's
of
obvious.
Florida, you surprised many
You have to remember,
with
like,
regard to your
DeSantis
6-week
hangs out in
abortion ban, because you
Tallahassee, right?
initially
That's
had
up in the
said
Panhandle.
that it was
Like,
too
Mar-a-Lago,
short, and you said,
I mean,
quote,
it's not a
I'm going
long
to be voting
flight,
that we
but
need
he's too
more
busy,
than
like,
6
running the
weeks. But
state.
then the very next day, you reversed
And Tulsi's a good
course
debater,
and said you would
and
vote
I
to
don't
support
doubt
the
that she probably
6-week
tried
ban.
to coach him, but let's
Vice
be honest,
President
this is
Harris
Trump. He
says that
doesn't listen
women
to
shouldn't
anybody.
trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is
would
because
ever trust
the
him?
plan is, as you know, the
Yeah.
vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the
Yes.
governor of West Virginia, the
don't
previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said
Virginia,
the
not
baby
West
will be
Virginia.
born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that
That gap is
predominates.
gonna play,
Because
and
they're
they're gonna
radical.
call
The
it a senior
Democrats are
moment.
radical in
Yeah.
that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential
He
pick
is right
says
on that.
abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius
even last 50
and
years.
heart and strength
counting, genius.
of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all
needs to go
wanted
punch
this
him in the
issue to
face
be
for
brought
comparing
back to the
himself to
states where the
Reagan.
people could vote.
Oh,
and that's what
please.
happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought.
Kansas hasn't
But
even.
each
Oh, wait,
individual
no, sorry.
state is
My
voting.
bad,
It's the
Missouri.
vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had
didn't
great
do it.
courage in doing it.
It took
And I
Mitch
give
McConnell
tremendous
handing him a
credit to
list
those
of
6
judges.
justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
You know, his
Well,
big
as I
problem
said, you're going to
is
hear a
he's
bunch of
continuing
lies,
to just
and
pander to
that's not
people that have
actually a
already
surprising
voted for him.
fact.
Like he's
Let's
just
understand how we
trotting
got
out
here.
the greatest fucking hits
Donald Trump
that people that are already in his
hand-selected
pocket
3
are
members
gonna
of the
cheer
United
on,
States
but-
Supreme Court with the intention
He's
that
not
they would
appealing
undo
to
the
moderates
protections of Roe
or
v.
the
Wade.
independents.
And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one
not
state,
Trump
it
abortion
provides
bans.
prison for
No,
Call
life.
them what they are. They're
Trump abortion
They're
bans that make no
Texas-style
exception
abortion
even for
ban.
rape and incest,
Lower
which
that.
understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens
This is
to their
dicey
body
for
next.
both
That
of
is
them, really.
immoral. And one does not
Because
have to abandon their
I don't know
faith
who's winning
or
this
deeply
topic
held
because,
beliefs
frankly,
to
both of
agree.
them
The
shitty
government
positions.
and Donald
are
Trump
terrible.
certainly should not be telling
She's
a woman
running the
what
risk
to
of
do
pushing away
with
moderates
her body. I
who
have
want
talked
more
with
limits.
women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because
That
the health
doesn't happen
providers
anywhere.
are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in
Even
the
if it
parking
doesn't
lot.
happen, that
She didn't
video
want that.
plays like
Her husband didn't want that.
kind of
A
performative
12 or
outrage.
13-year-old
that
survivor of
look
women
at
are going to
incest
eat that shit up.
being forced to carry a
Oh,
pregnancy
I
to
agree.
term.
It plays.
They don't want that. And I pledge
But
to you,
she's going
when
after the
Congress
people that are
passes a
already
bill
going to vote for
to
her.
put back in place the
She's
protections of Roe v.
solidifying
Wade,
the
as
lib
President
woman
of the United
vote.
States, I will proudly
That
sign
we're
it
never
into
gonna vote for
law.
Trump.
But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion
The wide
ban.
shot of
Understand,
the
in
two
his
of them.
Project
They need to do
2025,
more of that
there
because
would be a
it's exactly
national
what you said,
abortion,
Bonk.
a monitor that
Great
would be
big
monitoring
tall
your
man
pregnancies, your miscarriages.
towering over
I think the
a
American people
spunky little
believe
woman.
that certain freedoms,
Visuals,
in
she's one
particular the
individual.
freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because
You're a
we've
chicken.
gotten what everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Democrats,
No.
Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal
Democrats
scholar
don't want
wanted
it.
it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible.
You didn't do
The
it.
states are now voting. What
Thank
she
you.
says is an absolute lie.
No.
And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter.
He is
because
telling the truth
this
there.
issue
No,
has
he
now
doesn't.
been
He doesn't
taken
want one.
over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it
Well,
came
I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things.
Yes, he
Number
would.
one,
He
she
said he
said
would.
she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's
He would.
impossible for her to get
And
the vote.
the thing is, he missed the
especially
point.
now with the
He
50-50.
should have said it because
essentially
we already know he
50-50 in
will.
both Senate and
Yeah.
the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated,
Dodge that
and
trap.
it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it
Not a
again.
bad
We'll do it a
jab.
different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D.
Really
Vance,
shoehorning student loans into abortion there.
Well, I did discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Yeah. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments.
I live in a state where you're allowed to get them up till 9 months, which I think is
working women
insane.
Who are working one or two jobs,
there was at least one documented
who can
case of
barely
somebody
afford
child
care as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane
now
sitting
she's
next
going
to
on
strangers
IVF.
to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both,
Oh, yes. Very scary having to get on a commercial aircraft.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to respond.
It could be
another
Boeing.
Lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF.
Which is true. I should probably shut up on this topic. I fly private.
I have been a leader.
I mean,
in
we're
fact,
like 25 minutes
when they got
in,
a
for
very negative
goodness
decision
sake,
on
no.
IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto
under
Did
Roe v.
IVF
Wade,
become a political issue? Like, it was
do
just something people
abortions in
did
the
when they were
7th
having
month,
trouble.
the 8th month,
I don't
the
know.
9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably
Came out
after
of
birth.
fucking nowhere.
Just look at the governor,
But
former
he is good
governor
on
of Virginia.
pushing
The
the
governor
7th,
of
8th, 9th,
Virginia
and
said
asking
we
her
put the
about
baby
it.
aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
Deflecting from it.
Thank
So
you.
that's a
We're
good
going to
one.
turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans,
Yeah, but
Democrats,
IVF
voters
just
across
lost
the board
him the
in
rest
this
of the
country.
evangelicals
Vice President
that he
Harris,
was
you
holding
were
by a
tasked by
thread.
President Biden with getting
Yeah,
to the root causes
he
of
should have just
migration
shut
from
his
Central
mouth.
America. We know that
Are
illegal border
evangelicals
crossings reached
against
a record
IVF?
high
I
in the
mean,
Biden administration.
I
This
know
past
some, like,
June,
really
President
hardcore
Biden imposed
Catholics,
tough new
but-
asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped
Evangelicals are against it,
significantly.
Bon.
But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until
lot of them
6
are.
months before the election
is
to
crazy
act?
to me.
And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this
I'm
stage
torn on
who
the
has
issue 'cause I do
prosecuted
understand
transnational
both
criminal
sides.
organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the
Anything that
United States
creates life is a
Congress,
net
including some of the
positive,
most
even if it means
conservative
you're
members of the
jerking off
United
into a
States
cup
Senate,
at a facility
came up with a
somewhere. I mean-
border security bill,
I can
which
go
I
into it when we get to the
supported.
commercial break.
And that bill would have put
I don't wanna
1,500
see you going
more
into jerking
border
off
agents
into a
on the
cup.
border to
Not
help
that.
those
Damn.
folks who are working there
Okay,
right
I'm
now
out.
overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed
the only
us
reason
to
I
stem
joined.
the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations.
She's making
for
the best of a
trafficking in
losing
guns,
issue on
drugs,
this
and
one, at
human beings.
least.
But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
She just fucking
and I'll tell you
tagged him
something,
on
he's
this
going
one.
to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Whoa.
And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your
Well,
response.
Oh, man, hitting him where it hurts his
Why did you try to
popularity
kill
with
that
his
bill, and
people.
successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the board?
Well, you
First,
can
let me
just see that
respond
little
to the
vein in
rallies.
his forehead start
She
to
said
throb
people
at
start
the
leaving.
idea
People
that
don't
he's
go to
not,
her rallies.
that
There's no
he's
reason
not
to
as
go.
revered.
And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different
here
light.
we go.
So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of
I
politics.
knew it. He won't be able to.
People want to
He
take
can't
their
stop
country
himself
back.
on the rallies.
Our
I
country
knew he
is
couldn't
being
stop
lost.
him.
We're a failing nation.
That's why she
And it
brought it
happened
up.
3.5
That's why
years
she brought it
ago.
up.
And
And look at her,
what's going on
just the
here, you're
cat
going to end up
that
in
ate
World
the,
War III,
oh my
just to
God,
go
that
into another
shit-eating
subject.
grid. She
What
fucking
they
knew
have
he'd
done
do
to
it.
our country by allowing these millions and millions
He
of
fucking
people to come into our
dog-walked
country,
him right
and
into
look
it.
at what's happening to the towns all over the
They've been
United States.
leading
And a
him
lot of
around
towns
by
don't
the
want to
nose
talk. It's
for
not
8
going to be
years. Of
Aurora or
course they
Springfield.
did.
A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In
She's
Springfield,
full of crap.
they're eating the
but
dogs.
the thing is, people
the
will believe
that
her.
ran.
you brought-
They're eating the
what an
cats.
idiot.
They're eating.
They're-
They're eating the pets.
Those
of
are
the people
Americans,
that
you
live
dumbass.
there. And this
Yeah,
is
that
what's
cat
happening
eater was
in our
a
country.
Ohio
And
citizen.
it's a shame. As far as rallies
Or
are
resident,
concerned, as
whatever.
far as the reason
Well, we'll
they
call
go
him
is
out.
they
Is
like
Kamala
what I
gonna
say.
call him out
They
for
want
it?
to bring our country back. They want to make America
My
great again. It's a
God.
very simple
I
phrase.
cannot
Make
believe
America
that the
great again.
fucking Haitians
She's
eating
destroying
dogs
this
has
country.
made it onto
And
the
if
made
she
it onto
becomes
the debate
president,
stage.
this
Even
country
after
doesn't
like
have
it's
a
been
chance of
debunked for
success.
over a
Not
fucking
only
day,
success, we'll
and
end up
even his
being
running mate went,
Venezuela
"Yeah, we
on
know it's fake, but
steroids.
keep posting
I just
about
want
it."
to clarify here.
And
You
he-
bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He
Oh,
told us
they're gonna
there have
debunk-
been
Oh,
no
they're
credible
gonna
reports of
fact-check
specific
him?
claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals
Oh,
within
look
the
at that
immigrant
glare.
community.
Well,
All
I've
this-
seen people on television.
Let me just say here.
Oh,
this
I've
is the
seen
fifth-
people
People on
Whoever-
television
this is a
say
clear-
I have
"Dog
that
bites
sauce.
and
I don't know.
used for food."
I don't know who,
maybe he
who
said
they
that, and maybe
hired to
that's a good
coach
thing
her
to say for a
instead of
city
do that
manager.
fucking
I'm not taking this
cackle,
from
But the
television.
put her
people
hand
on
under her
television
chin
said
and
the
look
dog
like
was eaten
statuesque.
by
But
the
that
people
person
that
needs a
went there.
fucking raise.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the
Well,
rest of
but
what
no,
you've
we
heard.
know, you dummy.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election,
That's a good look from
I
her too.
actually
That
have
confused. Oh, you
endorsement
poor old man.
of
Oh, look at that
200
senior moment.
Republicans
That look
who
of
have
concern.
formerly
Oh,
worked with
look, we know
President
she's
Bush,
not concerned,
Mitt Romney,
but
and John
dear
McCain,
God, her facial expressions are
including the
doing wonders
endorsement
tonight.
of former Vice President Dick Cheney
doing a lot
and
better than I thought
Congress
she would.
member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the
shoulders getting
Taliban and
hunched
the
up and
13
oh, man,
people
he's
were just killed, viciously and violently killed, and I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen.
Tomorrow's headline, Trump admits he hires bad people who do bad jobs.
I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy.
Tomorrow's
look at the
headline,
inflation.
Trump claims his own plan for withdrawal was the most incompetent ever.
That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got
She
more
just
votes
did the oh God
than any
180 with her
Republican
eyes.
in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you called this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military. You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah.
Least important presidential
because of them.
ever.
Yeah. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals.
So
they allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down?
Illegal alien
you know why?
crossings of any
Because they've
president in
taken their
history
criminals
until
off the
Biden
street and they've
administration.
given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made.
I mean,
crime in this country
you had an easy winner here, but
and we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice President Harris,
at least this topic, but like, I mean, he's just coming off as
they didn't include the worst
old
cities.
and
They
angry
didn't include the cities with the worst crime.
Like,
it was a fraud.
Even
just
the ones
like their
that
number
are
of
layup topics for him.
818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out
This
to be a
is not
fraud.
2016, and she's not Hillary.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes,
good Lord.
economic crimes,
I
election
wonder if she's going to go ahead and take
interference,
the opportunity
has
to point
been
out
found
that the country
liable
burned under him
for
in
sexual
2020.
assault.
Probably not.
And his
'cause,
next
I mean, she
big
was helping,
court
but-
appearance is in November
She was
at his
pouring
own
gas
criminal
on the fire by
sentencing.
funding their bail.
And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding
and a left
federal
hook
law
from
enforcement,
Kamala.
45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are
Her version
exhausted
of bringing down the
with
price
the
of
same old
groceries
tired
is to
playbook.
try and
Vice
put
President
price
Harris.
caps on everything.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them
I mean,
against
the
their
reality is
political
fundamentally
opponent,
from
and I'm
policy
winning most of
perspective, they're
them,
the
and I will
same,
win
but-
the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the
Oh,
decision
yeah,
that came down just recently
both
from the
horrible.
Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's
I'm
called
innocent.
weaponization. Never happened
I'm
in
a
this
victim.
country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases
Look, there are certain
was
things
involved
that I
with
think
the
they
DOJ,
overcharged
from
him on,
Atlanta
but
and
come on.
Fani Willis
Come on.
to the
Wait, he's winning most
Attorney
of
General
no,
of New
he's
York
fucking
and the DA of New
delaying
York.
most
Every
of them.
one
He
of
hasn't
those
won
cases.
any of them.
And then
Even the one in
they
Florida
say,
that got dismissed,
he
that
was-
case is
he's a
coming
criminal.
right
They're
fucking
the
back.
ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the
listen to a
documents
lawyer
case.
talk
And
about
what
that.
happened in my
They can
documents case?
refile.
They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total
It's not even just
victory.
the
2 months ago,
refiling,
it
right?
was
I mean, they'll
thrown
just
out.
appeal Cannon's.
It's
I mean,
weaponization,
Cannon's
and they used it, and
fucking
it's never
ruling
happened in this
was not
country.
grounded
They
in any
used
reality.
it to try
And
and
she'd
win
already
an
been
election.
overruled
They're fake
twice
cases.
by
President Trump,
the
thank you.
Court of
Really quick
Appeals.
response here,
That
Vice President
dismissal
Harris,
will
on
get
this notion of the
overruled again. And
weaponization
she'll be
of the
removed
Justice
from the case
Department.
this time.
Well, let's talk about
He's
extreme
very
and
much
understand the
that's
context
his
in which
entire
this
fucking
election in
campaign. What he's
2024 is
running
taking
on
place.
is the ability to
The
pardon
United
himself
States
of
Supreme
crimes.
Court
He's on tape
recently
admitting he
ruled
committed.
that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of
That's gonna
Justice
play
against
well.
his political
That's gonna play
enemies.
well.
Someone who has openly
The
expressed
documents case is the
disdain
one I'm most
for
interested in
members of our
because I
military.
held a security
Understand
clearance,
what
and
it
I
would
know what
mean
would
if
have
Donald
happened to
Trump
me
were
if I would have
back in the
kept
White
crap.
House with no
Yeah, that doc,
guardrails.
again,
Because
he's on
certainly
tape
we know
admitting
now the
he did
court
it,
won't stop him. We know
narrating
J.D.
how
Vance
he
is
did
not
it,
going to stop
and
him.
admitting he knew it
It's
was a
up to the
crime to
American
do it.
people.
Vice President
stop
Harris.
it.
And there
Thank you.
was
Lindsay?
one
Vice President Harris, in your last
either
run for
RD or
president.
FRD document,
We gotta
which
get
the
This is the one that
president can't
weaponized, not me.
declassify.
She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things
Look at
that they
his
say
face
about
is
me.
getting
They
red.
talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy.
Why
It was
did
a
he
fake
say
Russia
probably took a bullet to the
investigation.
head?
That went
He's
nowhere.
flustered.
We have a lot to get to.
Very
Lindsay?
flustered.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you
gotten
said
under
you wanted
his
to ban
skin.
fracking.
This is
Now you don't.
textbook.
You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border
Threat to
crossings.
democracy,
Now you're
drink.
taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the
can't ban
tie-breaking
fracking as
vote
Vice
on the Inflation
President.
Reduction Act, which
Minor
opened
detail.
new leases for fracking. My
Details.
position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance
If
on foreign
non-hyphenated
oil.
were here,
We
he
have
would explain
had
that
the
we are
largest
producing more
increase
oil
in
now than
domestic
we
oil
ever have.
production in history.
but-
We are,
because of an
and
approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely
we
on
are,
foreign
and
oil. As it relates
because
to my
I come
values,
from
let
an
me
oil
tell you,
field
I
family.
grew up a middle-class
2015,
kid
we
raised
had to
by a
shut stuff
hardworking
down.
mother who
The rig
worked
count
and
in North
saved
Dakota went
and was
to
able
crap,
to buy our first
and
home
it
when I was
never
a
came
teenager.
back up. It came
values
back
I
up
bring
just a
to the
tiny bit
importance of
under
home
Trump,
ownership, knowing
but it
not
didn't come
everybody
back
got
up to boom
handed
status.
$400 million
But yes,
on a
now
silver
we are
platter and then filed
burning
bankruptcy
and
6 times
pumping out that oil.
is a
But
value
our
that I bring to
refining
my work
capability
to say
sucks,
we are going
which
to
is why
work
our
with the private
gas
sector and
prices
home
are higher.
builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is
whole,
related
I'm not
to
going to ban frack.
having
Like,
a friend
that
when
was
I
a
was in high
female
school
John
who was
Fetterman
sexually
moment.
assaulted
If you
by her
remember the debate
stepfather.
with Oz, where
And my
he
focus
just like
then
started
I
on
love fracking.
protecting women and
fracking.
children from
Fracking
violent
good.
crime is based
I
on a
don't know.
value
Fracking
that is
awesome.
deeply grounded in the importance
said it like
of
3 times in a row.
standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work
She's
that
doing
is
a Heidi
about
Heitkamp.
protecting Social Security and Medicare is
I
based on
was gonna ban
long-standing
fracking,
work
but
that I
not
have
now.
done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings
She cackled
values
one
and
time.
a
I don't think
perspective
so.
that is about lifting people up and not beating
She's full of
people
shit, but
down.
no.
And name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be
I'm waiting for
that
her to do the
president.
whole reach
President
out.
Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many,
she's
many
starting to
billions
spin.
of
She's
dollars. Many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk
How
about that.
bankrupt you are?
Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all
Wait,
that
what?
stuff
He
up.
just screwed up.
Very
forever.
wrongly, very
He screwed up
horribly.
right there.
And everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing
Everyone's
at
laughing
it.
at you
She
'cause you're
gave
an old
up
man.
At least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies, like She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota,
Okay, now he
she went
fixed it.
out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind.
Oh,
Please.
really?
Did he
You
just
did
do
that?
Does that sound familiar? She went out
That was a
She went
good
out
one.
in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal
that didn't
aliens
get
that
him
are
any
in
points.
prison. This is a radical left liberal.
But he
that
did
would
steal
do
her
this.
line, and I
she
think
wants
that's
to
funny.
confiscate your guns,
sort of
and
funny.
she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before.
All right, who
They
had
took- when they
transgender
took over-
surgeries for illegal
They got rid
alien
of it, started
prisoners on
getting
their
rid of it,
bingo card?
and the prices were
Not
going
me.
up
I didn't think
the
you-
roof.
I
They
knew about it, but I
immediately
didn't
let
think you'd
these
bring it up.
I
guys
think that's an
go
automatic
to where they
fucking
were.
Yahtzee. Everybody drink.
I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up.
But him
to where
talking
I
about how
was
much he did
because
for
they
the
had no
oil
choice
field
because
is
the prices
straight
of energy
bullshit.
were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel
If
will
he
be
would
dead.
have
We'll
done
go
so
back
much
to
for the oil
windmills, and we'll
field,
go back to
we would have had our
solar,
trucks
where
running
they
after
need a
he
whole
got
desert
elected.
to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President Trump.
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you.
Can you
We have an
shut up?
election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president
democracy.
in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the
Here we
Capitol
go,
that day,
January
the
6th.
officers coming under
Good.
attack.
Drink.
Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about
Almost
what you did on that
spewed
day?
there when it
You
said
just said
tweets.
a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully.
He's throwing him under the
and
bus on
patriotically.
national TV
and
in a
nobody on the
presidential
other
debate.
side was killed.
Drink.
Ashley Babbitt was
Drink.
shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed
Just
by the
remember,
border. In fact, she said at the
Trump
beginning.
isn't getting all of his
I'm surprised you're
voters
not
back
talking
from
about the border
2020.
yet.
There is
That's
that
because
one.
she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David,
you.
when are
One
those people going to be
sentence.
prosecuted?
That's
When are the
7
people that
times he
burned
said
down
borders are in
Minneapolis
the
going to
last
be
15.
prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went
That
into
was
Seattle.
during
They
your
took over a big
presidency.
percentage of the city of Seattle.
But you
when
know,
are those
the
people
sad
going
thing
to be
is we can seal the
prosecuted?
border up, and we're still
But let
going
me
to
just
get a
ask
you.
crap
You
ton
might
of
ask her that
illegals.
question.
You were the
They're
president.
going to come
you
in
were
via the
watching it
water.
unfold on
They're
television.
going to
It's
come
a
in
very
via
simple
Canada
question as
because
we
we
move
don't
forward toward another election.
really give a shit
Is there
about that
anything
border.
you regret about what
Well, the
you did
water
on
could
that
be
day?
fixed if they'd only properly
Yes, sir.
I
fund
had
the Coast
nothing to
Guard,
do
but
with
Trump
that
doesn't
other
like the
than they
Coast
asked
Guard
me to
because
make a
they save
speech.
lives
I showed
instead
up
of
for a
take it.
speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I
Meh,
went to
pedal
Nancy
pirates.
Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it
The Coast
wasn't
Guard
done
does
by
a
me.
lot
It
of
was
good
done by
work.
others.
We,
I
use them to
said,
circumvent
I'd like to give you
some stuff.
10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape.
Angry old man yells
It
at
would have never
clouds. That's all
happened
this
if
is.
Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did
Nancy
their jobs.
Pelosi
I wasn't
rejected him.
responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not
question
about
was
former
about
Speaker
you.
Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the
Here
vice
we go.
president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob.
I never did
To
anything
attack
wrong. I'm perfect. I
nation's
didn't attempt
capital.
to do anything. I didn't
To
rile them up.
desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
Don't say it.
Come on.
No.
Tiki torches.
Don't do it.
Spewing anti-Semitic
Oh,
hate.
it's so dumb.
And what did the president
And it's
then
been
at the time
debunked.
say?
Don't do it.
There were fine people on
Ah,
their
you idiot.
side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said,
The Proud
former
Boys are a
president
bunch
said,
of
"Stand
idiots,
back
not
and
a
stand
militia."
by." So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I
Charlottesville
say
was a
we
big
don't
and
have
worth
to go
error on her
back.
part.
Let's not
This was
go
a
back. We're
big
not going
problem.
back.
This was
It's
a
time to
stupid
turn
answer.
the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy,
No.
to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos.
I am no fan of Trump,
And to
but
end
no.
the approach that is about
4 years ago, I
attacking
said
the
that stand back
foundations
and
of our
stand by was going to be
democracy
something
'cause you
that
don't
haunted him
like
for
the
years,
outcome.
and here it
And be
is.
clear
Yep.
on that point.
Oh,
Donald
yeah.
Trump, the
But it's
candidate,
like, I'm no fan
has
of Trump,
said in this
but
election
oh, hell
there will
no.
be a bloodbath.
Oh, hell no.
If
I will
this
just go
and the
down
outcome
ballot.
of this election is not to his liking, let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's
Turn the
chart a
page.
course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just
Doing a
follow up
really
here.
good job of balancing, like,
was a
attacking
different
him and
term,
all
and
the
it was
shit
a
that's
term
gone
that
wrong, but
related
also
to
trying to
energy
channel,
because they've
like,
destroyed
you
our
know,
energy
wish
business.
at
That was where
Barack
bloodbath
Obama.
was. Also,
Yep.
on Charlottesville,
You know, if she
that
wants to
story
turn
has
the
been, as you
page,
would say,
then why would we
debunked.
vote for either of
Laura
them?
Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this.
He
You talk
brought up
about the Capitol.
Crap about the
Why are
freaking
we
cat. So,
allowing
I mean, they're all
these
bringing up
millions of
bullshit.
people to come through?
It's
on
his
the-
lives
Did he just
on
say
the
How
line.
come she's not
that the
doing
Bidens
anything?
have
And I'll
destroyed
tell
the
you what I
energy
would
sector?
do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now.
Yes, that would
I'd
be
like to see her
preferable for
go
everyone.
down to
Please
Washington,
do.
D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time.
We are.
Go down to, because she's been so bad,
That's why
it's so
we need to
ridiculous.
drink.
Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close
You
up the
both
border.
suck.
Because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The
Yeah,
president
but she
of the
is
United
fucking
States, you'll get him out of
roundhousing
bed,
him
you'll wake
today.
him
Like,
up at
it's
4 o'clock in
his
the
big
afternoon. You
thing.
say,
Like,
come
he's so
on
successful
down
in
to the
debates
office.
because
Let's
he
sign a
throws
bill.
out
If he
800
signs a
lies
bill that
in,
the
you know,
border
20
is
seconds.
closed, all he has to do is
And
say
it
it to the
takes,
Border
you know,
Patrol, who are
2
phenomenal.
minutes to
If
debunk
they
each
do
lie,
that, the
but you've only
border
got
is
2 minutes to
closed.
respond
Those
to most
people
of
are
it goes
killing
unchecked.
many people,
This whole
unlike
debate so far,
J6.
We
she's
talked
had him
immigration here tonight. I do wanna
responding to her
focus on
shit
this next
instead of
issue
the other way
because it
around.
really brings us
Like, every time
this
it's
into
like,
focus.
oh, I've got to
truth,
respond to this.
in
Oh, I
these
need to
times that we're
respond to
living
that.
in.
Like, she's
Mr.
fucking
President, for 3.5
dog-walking him.
years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide.
we go.
In the
Oh.
past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have
said you
said,
won by
quote,
a
you
little
lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in
It's
No,
on video,
I don't
dude.
acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically. You
But
know
those-
that.
Oh.
We said, oh, we lost by a
Bullshit.
whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look. There's
So now
much
you're
in
just
your
doubling
bill. All you have
down,
to
you
do is look at
dumbass.
it. And they should have sent it back
Oh,
to the
man, this is gonna be
legislatures for
good.
approval. I got almost
could've
75
took
million
the
votes, the most
opportunity to
votes
gain
any
votes.
sitting president has ever gotten. I was told
Yes,
if I got
and with the
63,
highest
which was what I got
population
in
of any sitting
2016,
president,
you
but
can't be
okay.
beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to
Headline
have
tomorrow,
borders.
Trump
and
once
we have to
again
have good
claims
elections.
election,
Our elections
stolen.
are bad. And a lot of these illegal
can't
immigrants
help
coming
himself.
in, they're
I didn't
trying to
lie. I
get
was
them to vote.
sarcastic.
They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in
He
practically.
keeps going
and
into
these
this, I
people are
got
trying
so
to
many
get them to
votes,
vote.
but he
And
ignores
that's
the
why they're
fact that the
allowing
only
them to
reason
come
he
into
got
our
more
country.
votes
I
than
did
any
watch
other
all of these pieces
Republican
of video.
before is
I
because he
didn't
was the
detect the
first one where
sarcasm, lost by a
everybody
whisker,
got to
we didn't
vote by
quite make it.
mail.
And we should just point out
he
here, as
reduces the
clarification, you
barrier
know
to
this,
entry,
you
and he
your
goes,
allies,
it's
60
totally
cases
appropriate that I
in front
got
of many judges,
75
many of
million,
them
judge
but it
looked
makes
at
no
it
sense
and
that
said
the
they
other
should
side,
understand.
who
He's
now
He's now
also
arguing
has
with
the
the
the barrier,
moderators
They
about
said we didn't have
Election
standing, a
interference.
technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have
you
you,
just
you'll do
couldn't find a
special on it.
Kraken.
I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you
You'll show
Pennsylvania.
me
and I'll show you-
irregularities,
we have
but
so
no
many
concrete
facts
evidence.
and statistics. But you know what?
Wisconsin,
That
he
doesn't
lost
matter,
by the
because
margin
we have
that
to solve
most
the
people
problem that
lose
we have
Wisconsin.
right now. That's old news. And the problem that we
lost
have right
every
now
court
is we have a
case.
nation in decline.
Move
And
on,
they have
no
put it
fool.
into decline. We
In
have a
his defense
nation
on this
that
one
is
now, like the
dying, David.
2020,
Mr.
all those
President, thank you.
challenges,
Vice
all the
President
courts
Harris,
just went
you heard the
latches,
president there
bitches,
tonight. He said he
and
didn't
you
say
know they
that he lost
punted
by
it.
whisker, so he
But
still
got a little
believes
something
he
there,
did
but
not
people
lose
don't
the
care. It's
election.
over. And
That was
I'm
won
sorry.
by
Now he's
President
arguing
Biden,
with the
and
moderate.
yourself.
Like he's not even looking at
But I
Kamala.
do want
He's
to ask you about
arguing with
something
the
that's
moderator of the
Moderator about
debate.
This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated,
There
and
you
then
go,
he lists
brain fog.
donors,
How I
voters,
had
election
break it.
officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying
A
to do?
nice little dig by the moderator. That was
Donald
won
Trump
by.
was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
And clearly he is having a very
What's going
difficult
to
time
suppress
processing
the
that.
vote is
But
people
we
getting tired of
cannot
him and then
afford to
not
have a
voting
president of
for
the
the down
United
ballot.
States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing
want a
at
cookie?
Donald Trump.
Oh, that
I
one
have
hurt
talked
him.
with
Oh, look at
military
him. Oh,
leaders,
that one
some of whom
struck
voted
him to
That
the
smile.
core.
and they
That
say you're a
freaking smile.
disgrace.
That was
And when
that
you
was the
then
pain
talk
of knowing
in
that he
this
had been
way
rejected.
in a presidential debate
And
and
hated.
deny what
And when
over
he
and over
licks
again
his
are
upper
court cases
teeth,
you
you
have
know he's
lost
pissed.
because you
Yeah,
did
well,
in
I
fact
mean, look, his
lose
eyes
that
are like he's
election.
squinting now,
It
like he's
leads one
narrowed
to
his eyes,
believe
he's got his
that
lips
perhaps
pursed.
we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact.
Ooh.
That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll
So
give
are
you 1
we
minute
not
or so.
gonna have
Not a bad
Let me
line.
just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong
Oh,
man.
no.
He's a tough
Don't
person.
bring up Victoria.
Smart.
Don't bring up
Prime Minister
Orban.
of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They
Oh,
were
man,
afraid
he
of
just
him.
did the
China
"you're a
was afraid,
confused old
and I don't
man"
like to use
line.
the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at
Would it
what's
be
going
wrong
on
to
with
just
North
drink
Korea,
the
by
whole
the way.
thing right now?
He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline,
I'm
and
actually being a
Biden put
pussy.
it
I'm only
back
doing
on day
vodka
one,
tonight
but he
because I
ended the
figured this
XL
was gonna-
pipeline. The XL
got-
pipeline in
I
our
got-
country,
I got
he
like a
ended
s-
that. But he let the Russians
don't know
build a
what this
pipeline
is.
going
I've
all
never
over
seen
Europe
it,
and
but
heading into
it's not
Germany,
bad.
the biggest pipeline
I
in
don't
the
know
world.
what Trump
Look,
thinks he's getting here with
Viktor Orban
Viktor Orban thinks I
said
was a
it.
better
He
leader
said the most
when
respected,
Kamala's
most
line
feared
was
person
Trump's
is
own
Donald
military
Trump.
personnel
We
thought he
had
was
no
bad.
problems
Like
when
most people
Trump
have
was
no idea who the
president.
fuck Viktor
But
Orban
when this
even is.
weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy.
Now the
He got
president of the
14
United
million
States
votes, and they
controls
threw him out
European
of
natural
office.
gas pipelines.
And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But
Mr.
he got
President.
14
But
million
nobody in
votes.
your government
They
can
threw him
stand you
out.
either.
She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
Mr.
because
President, your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot
I think
more
we
to
do
get
very
to.
Turning
well.
now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans.
Remember, for
among
those
them.
keeping score at
Vice
the home
President
game,
Harris in
Trump only got
December, you
80%
said,
of the
quote,
vote when he
Israel
was
has a
the
right to
only one
defend
left.
itself,
He was the
but
only
you
one
added, quote,
there.
it matters
Exactly.
how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many
Good
of them
girl.
young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also
Oh
true.
no,
far
she's
too
about
many
to. This is going to
innocent
be a bad
Palestinians
answer for her.
have been
She's going to
killed.
start doing the I love school
Children,
buses and
mothers.
Venn diagrams. Bullshit.
What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the
Ceasefire,
ability
no.
to
They need to
defend
turn it to fucking
itself,
glass.
in particular as it relates to
Burn it.
Iran.
Burn it to
and
the
any
ground.
threat that Iran and its
Turn the
proxies
entire strip
pose
to
to
glass.
Israel. But
Cover
we
it in a
must
layer
have
of
a
pork
two-state
fat.
solution
Put a
where we
park
can
over it,
rebuild
and then put
Gaza,
a
where the
pipe in the middle of the
Palestinians
park with
have
the leader of
security,
Hamas's head
self-determination,
involved in a
and the
jar,
dignity they so rightly
looking out at the
deserve.
river and the sea that they will
President
never
Trump,
claim.
how would you negotiate
And
with
then open up
Netanyahu
a spirit
and also Hamas
and then
in order
open
to
up
get
a
the
spirit
hostages
Hollywood.
out and prevent the
I
killing
mean, a
of
spirit
more
Halloween.
innocent civilians
Yeah.
in Gaza?
Spirit
If I were
Hollywood.
president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never.
You know
ever,
what?
I know
They
Putin
would have
very
just
well.
waited
He
another
would have
4
never,
years.
and there was no threat of
Yeah.
it either, by
These-
the way, for 4 years. Have gone
These
into
people
Ukraine
have all
and
the
killed
time in the world.
millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted
Point
to
of
go to the
fact,
sorority
Putin was
party.
starting to amass
She
troops at the
hates
Ukrainian
Israel.
border
If she's
when Trump was
president,
still
I believe
president.
that Israel will not
Bingo.
exist within 2 years from now. And I've been
You
pretty
know,
good
the
at
Yemen
predictions, and I
thing's been
hope I'm
going
wrong
on
about that
since
one.
what? I don't know,
She
Carter.
hates Israel. At the same time, in her own
Let's
way,
not forget the
she hates
Iranians
the
that
Arab
completely bodied
population
his ass by,
because
humiliating those
the
100
whole
and some odd
place
Navy
is going to
people
get
when he did
blown
nothing
up.
about it.
Arabs, Jewish people,
I'm still pissed
Israel,
at the Navy
Israel
over
will
that.
be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion
Iran was
because
not
they took
broke.
off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had
Qatar
no
just
money
gave them
for
whatever
Hamas
money
or
they needed.
Hezbollah or any of the 28 different
Did you just say he was pretty good at
spheres
predictions,
of
Mr.
terror.
Captain
And they
Bankruptcy?
are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very
They
well,
had money.
actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke.
Yes,
now
they
they're
did.
a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's
Houthis?
going on in the Middle East. This would have
please.
never happened. I will get that
The
settled
whole deal with
and fast,
Iran
and I'll
is
get the
Qatar just
war
gave them all the
with
money they
Ukraine
wanted,
and Russia
and we've been
ended.
protecting
If I'm
Qatar
president
for how
elect,
long?
I'll get it done before even
Yeah, this
becoming
whole Iran was
president.
broke
Vice
thing, this
President
doesn't
Harris, he
fly.
says you hate
Iran
Israel.
produces unlimited amounts
That's
of oil. Yeah,
absolutely
sure,
not
U.S.
true.
stopped
I
buying it, but
have
they just sold
my
it to other
entire
countries
career and
or
life
funneled it through
supported
other
Israel
countries.
and the Israeli people.
Yeah.
He knows that he's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires
Actually,
dictators.
foreign policy-
Wants to be a dictator
President
on day
Trump
one, according
admits
to
he will
himself.
commit Hatch Act
It is well
violations by
known
interfering
that
in
he
foreign
said of
policy before
Putin
he's president.
that he can do
Yeah.
whatever the hell he
Trump-
wants and go
foreign
into
policy
Ukraine.
might have been
It is
his
well known
better
that he said
area,
when Russia
even though he
went into
wasn't great.
Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters
Legally,
with
a
Kim Jong-un.
president-elect, even if he is
And it
president-elect,
is absolutely well known
can't
that these
communicate with
dictators and
adversarial
autocrats
world
are
leaders
rooting
about
for
policy
you to
because
be
he has no
president
authority.
again because
So
they're
he just
so
went on
clear.
TV and said, "Yeah, I'm
They
going to
can
commit felonies."
manipulate you with flattery and favors.
Details.
And
That's
that
actually a
is
good
why
line. They can manipulate
so
you with
many
flattery and
military leaders
favorites.
who you have worked with have told
Because it's
me
true.
you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the
Whoa.
one that caused it. that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant
she just
it,
called him weak.
because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened
He just
with
played
me.
the Putin endorser
The leaders
line.
of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are.
When all Putin
They're
wants is
grossly
just to sow
incompetent.
chaos and
I just
discord.
ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2,
Because
the
Vladimir
biggest
Putin is
pipeline
such an
anywhere in the
idiot
world,
that he
going to
wouldn't
Germany and all
understand that
over
an
Europe,
endorsement from him would be
because
an
they're weak and
anti-endorsement.
they're
So he
ineffective.
does the
And Biden, by
anti-endorsement
the
to
way,
get the
gets
real
paid a lot of
endorsement.
money.
Thank you. We have a lot of
Because,
issues
you
to
know,
get
again,
to.
We'll be
Putin
right
has
back with
such a
much more
long
of this
history of
historic
being
ABC News
incompetent and
presidential
stupid.
debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Oh, we finally have a break.
Finally, good lord.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
I award them
After
both
we're
0
all-
points.
I award you 0 points, and may God have mercy on your soul. My goodness.
Look,
this was
she
terrible.
is good on getting him flustered.
Yes.
But we all know it's bullshit. We all know everything she's spouting is pretty much bullshit as far as what she's going to do. He's
It's
spouting
100%. But if this was a boxing match, I mean, this wasn't a TKO, but she sure as shit knocked him down twice.
Oh, yeah.
Like that was a 10-7 round.
Yep.
But we're getting it. We're getting a lot of what I said. It's like, well, you were president. Well, you were vice president. So they're just going back and forth. Both of them are spouting a bunch of bullshit and nonsense, and I'm still team sweet meteor of death.
Amen.
Or Palpy Vader. You will vote for the Empire.
There's already too many points in that whole debate in which we had to drink. Now I need to sober up for the second half.
Second half, like, is it an hour and a half or a 2-hour debate?
I mean, there's 3 breaks, right? Or 2 breaks. So this was only the first third.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been an hour. Damn.
Yeah. Which means we're going to be here for a while. So whoever's watching, make sure you share this video. To share it with your friends so that others can be, supportive of our suffering. And maybe even chime in a couple dollars so that we can pay for more booze. Because we're going to go through a lot tonight. I know you're drinking Captain Morgan. And I know Bonk is drinking rum. And Juliana's...
Nah, vodka.
I'm on vodka, but now that you say it, I should go to the rum.
Yeah, I have some rum.
I've got the Il Dictador, the 42-year age. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with the Resistance.
Yeah, I went with the cheapo stuff.
A 42-year aged Colombian rum. I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab it.
Juliana brought extra Tanqueray. I'm good, guys. I'm here for the duration.
Yep. Well, I'm so some very good Calgary pizza. If you're ever in Calgary, check this out.
It looks wicked good.
Mm-hmm.
When autocorrect changes your text from morning run to morning rum, it's going to be a good time.
My coworkers were already like, "You're coming in tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am coming in tomorrow." And they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yes, I think."
Maybe.
Thank goodness all I gotta do is continue helping get a house washed tomorrow. Helping my parents get their house repainted, so.
Yeah, tomorrow just like stumbling around campus. Be like, yeah, I'm here. I'm not all here, but I'm here.
I'm one of you kids.
Well, as we expected, the moderators are definitely helping Ms. Harris.
They're definitely fact-checking for her.
Yeah.
But
I
she's
mean,
not...
Trump is being his own worst enemy, though.
Yes.
I mean,
as always, once again, he who steps on the least rakes is going to win.
But which one has stepped on the least rakes? Good Lord.
She has definitely stepped on a few.
Yeah, but she's recovered fairly well from them, because her go-to line is, "We got to turn the page. I'm working for you." And the line about at his rallies, does he ever talk about you? No, it's all about him. That
was a good line. Oh, are we coming back? Yeah, we're coming back. All right, I'll unmute it.
Round 2.
Round 2, fight.
And Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more, because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion
He was good with the I want to save
Biden
lives.
and you
He should have
don't
stopped
have
there.
the courage to ask
I want to
Europe,
end the war.
like I
want to
did
save
with
lives.
NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people.
Somebody bring up,
you take a look at what's happening.
Russia funding
We're in
the
for
influencers,
250
please.
to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden.
You're
How
not
would you respect
president.
him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left.
I'm fine down
I said,
here in
oh,
Texas.
he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't.
It could be because I'm in a small
Biden
town,
had
but
no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
They
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president?
Mazel
But we have a
tov.
president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interests for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts.
Well, at least he
on,
said from being
support
destroyed
for
after
Ukraine
that.
in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief,
Because he
if
definitely
elected,
paused
how would
there.
you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
Ooh.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia
This isn't even our damn war.
tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour.
Yeah.
I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier. And please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And
Ukraine doesn't have nuclear weapons, funny enough, because they gave them to us in order for us to defend them.
He does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about.
Which is why when this whole thing started, the answer was just to be like, all right, here are your bombs back, like, you guys figure it out.
Before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war.
I don't disagree with you,
because everything
we should just gave them the nukes back and said, have fun.
They said the wrong thing.
I don't care. Don't care.
She was the emissary.
Yeah, and initially I was very, okay, we made a deal with them. We told them we'd give them protection.
And she did.
We have to honor our agreement. But as this shit dragged on, I was like, you know what? They had the fourth largest arsenal. Just be like, here, have 80 bombs. I think that's 20 more than you used to have. Like, that should probably put an end to this.
In the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you.
You did bring up something. You said you went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight? History.
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strong men instead of caring about democracy.
I'm nowhere near drunk.
And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO.
I don't know if it's playing with people that don't follow politics
both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before. if you
This
don't
he
pay,
did. This
we're
is
not
true.
going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility
Credit where it's
in the
due.
way
This
that
is one of
withdrawal
like
played
3
out?
things Trump did right in his presidency.
Well, I will tell you,
was
I
getting
agreed
people to
with
stop
President
welching in
Biden's
fucking
decision
NATO.
to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents
Exactly.
said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are.
Totally ignoring
Donald Trump, when he was
special
president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security
Except for
advisor
they
said
went with his
it was
deal.
a weak,
Yeah.
terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the
And
Afghan
executed
government.
it poorly.
He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization
You
called the
both
Taliban.
suck.
The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this,
That they would have got
and
anyway. So
the
what
president
fuck's the
at
problem?
the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where
No, it
we
isn't.
honor the importance
Not
of
anymore.
American diplomacy, where we invite and receive
It's the president's
respected
little
world
retreat.
leaders. And this former president,
I
as
give more
president,
respect to Bush's
invited them
ranch than I do Camp David.
to Camp David because he does not again appreciate
Sue
the
me.
role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned
And I've been,
members of our
been
military,
around a long time. I think
fallen
this is the
soldiers,
first time where I've ever
and the
heard that I
work
was
that we
supposed to
must
think
do
of
to
Camp David
uphold
as
the
a source of
strength
national
and the
national
respect
pride.
of the United States of America around
Yeah,
the world.
look, it's
Vice President
literally
Harris,
a
thank
not
you.
allowed
fucking
to go
military
there.
base.
To her saying that you began the negotiations
thank
with
you.
the
The White House, I get it.
So-
Like, we can at least take a
If you
tour.
take a look at
I
that
don't
period
know
of
of
time,
anybody just showing up at Camp
the
David
Taliban
going,
was
this is
killing
like
our
a
soldiers,
pilgrimage for
a
me.
lot
Can
of
you
them,
please open
with
the
snipers.
gates?
And I got involved with the Taliban.
I
Because
got
the
I have a
Taliban
better
is doing the
chance of
killing.
being
That's
able
the
to go
fighting
to
force
Bush's
within
ranch
Afghanistan. They don't
than
bother
I do
doing that
Camp
because
David.
they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved, and Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban.
Abdul.
And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have
I
problems.
told Abdul I'm going to
And
give
he
you
said,
everything.
why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for
Abdul,
18
I'm
months,
gonna kill you.
we had nobody killed.
Abdul,
You're
We
gonna
did
die
have an
like a
agreement
dog.
negotiated by Mike
and
Pompeo.
Abdul was
It a very
clearly a
good
genius
agreement.
because he
The
said I was
reason
pretty.
It was good. It was, we were getting out. We would have been out
Abdul
faster
said I
than
looked
them,
like-
but we wouldn't have lost the
He said I
soldiers.
looked like
we
his
wouldn't have left
favorite
many
goat. It was
Americans
such a good
behind, and we
goat. It
wouldn't
was
have
the
left.
best goat
We
ever.
wouldn't have left.
Abdul said he
$85
loves the
billion
Cheeto
worth of
dust on
brand
his
new,
lips.
beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement
They used
said
my
you have to
exact
do
plan,
this,
but they
this,
blew
it.
this,
Blew it.
this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us
Trump, by
because
they, do you
they
mean
didn't
Loomer? She was on your
do
jet.
what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our
pull-out
country.
game,
And by the
weakest
way,
pull-out
that's
game
why
ever.
Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I
Hi,
want to move on now to
Jodiana.
race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently
That
said of
look-
Vice President
that look
Harris,
of like,
quote,
I
I didn't
hate
know
you."
she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be
Oh,
known
here we
as
go,
black.
here we go.
I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight.
Uh-oh.
Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't
Not
care.
what he said before.
Yeah, that's
You
not
make
what
a
you
big
said
deal
about
out of
3 weeks
something.
ago.
I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say
I
is
don't know what I
read where
said.
she
I'm an
was
old man.
not black,
Yeah.
that she put out, and I'll say
It would be
that,
funny if she
and
answered
then
to be like,
I
well,
read
you
that she
know,
was
like,
black.
you're an old man.
And
It's
that's
okay if you
okay.
forget.
Either one was okay with me.
You
That's
said it
up
on
to her.
True Social, and
That's
True
up to her.
Social stock is
President
worth
Harris, your
almost
thoughts on
nothing
this?
now, so it doesn't count.
How much
I
money
think
have you made,
it's-
Bong?
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy
I
that we
have made
have
$0.
someone who
Yes.
wants to be president who has
Yeah, I'm up like
consistently,
8.2
over the
million,
course
but-
of his career, attempted to use
Best
race to
short
divide the
ever.
American people.
Ever.
You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us
I'm
know that we have
riding
so
it
much
to
more in common than
zero.
what separates us, and we
If
don't
this thing
want
is being recorded,
this kind of
this
approach
is my
that
voice.
is just
Verbal
constantly trying
agreement.
to
I
divide
am
us, and
never
especially
letting
by
go of
race.
those
And
shorts.
let's remember
Never letting go of
how
those
Donald
shorts
Trump
until that
started. He was
stock is delisted.
a
Never. I will hold
land,
it
he
forever.
owned land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because
Not gonna lie, I
he
wish I had
refused
the
to
money
rent
that I could have shorted
Oh,
it
yeah.
all the way
property
down.
to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual
I think Chatley has
who
made
took
20
out
or
a
30 grand
full-page
on
ad in the
puts,
New
right?
York
He played the
Times
options instead of the
calling for the
shorting.
execution
Because you have to remember, when I shorted it, like,
black and Latino
getting a hold of shares to
boys
short
who
was
were
almost
innocent,
impossible. It
the
was only
Central
because I
Park
had
5
preferred status with
took out a
my
full-page
broker.
ad
That they
calling
were
for their
like, all right, look,
execution.
we'll give you
This is
this
the same
allocation.
individual
We're really not
who
supposed to.
spread birther lies about the
But like, we
first
can't
black
give you any
president
more,
of the
because I was like,
United
I'll take every
States.
share you can give me. Give
And
them
I
all.
think the
Give me
American
$1 million
people
if you can.
want better than that. Want better than this. Want someone who understands, as
to
I do,
get
I
back
travel
in the
our
market.
country.
2020,
We
I took
see in each
$1,500
other
all the way up to
a
like
friend.
25 grand.
We see in each other a
So
neighbor.
this
We
is kind of a
don't
lull in the
want a
debate. We
leader
can
who is
talk about this very
constantly
briefly.
trying
talk
to
If you want to
have
get back in the
Americans
market, that's
point their
great, but
fingers
September
at
is
each
not the
other.
month to do it.
I meet with people
Oh
all the
no,
time.
I'm not
who
talking
tell
about
me,
like right this minute.
can we please just have discourse
I
about
was going to say
how
September
we're
is a
going to
very
invest in
bearish
the
month, super
aspirations
choppy.
and the ambitions
Why
and
I've
the
been
dreams
warning
of the
people all
American
month on my
people?
Twitter. So,
Knowing
like, be
that
very
regardless
careful.
of people's
And I'm
color
glad to
or
see that
the
people are
language
listening.
their
October
grandmother
is
speaks,
usually
we all
pretty flat, but
have
it
the
trends
same
upwards.
dreams and
If you're
aspirations
going to get
and
back
want a
in, November
president
is the
who
month to do it.
invests in those,
That's when Santa
not
Claus
in
comes
hate
to
and
town.
division.
Yeah,
Vice President Harris.
You can get,
Thank you. Lindsay?
get back
President
on our
Trump,
website.
this is now your third time.
Back in 2020, I
This is the most
missed
divisive
getting to have
presidency
fun with Kodak
in
Claus.
the history of our country. There's never been anything
I'm
like
still
it.
pissed
They're
that I missed
destroying
out
our
on that
country.
play.
And they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this
Not
is
his
a
third time.
person
This is his fifth
that has
time
to
running.
stretch back years,
Lord,
40,
yeah.
50 years ago, because
went
there's
to
nothing
destroy the
now.
Reform
I built
Party.
one of the greatest economies in the history of the world.
At
the
I'm going
behest
to
of
build it
Roger
again.
Stone.
It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their
Neither do
oil
you.
policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden.
Miss Ziva
The
for
worst
president. She's a
inflation
good
we've
girl.
ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad. And she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up,
I
Lindsay.
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond
I
briefly.
just noticed the Discord stream is
Clearly,
running about 10
I am
seconds
not Joe
faster
Biden.
than my Hulu stream.
And I am certainly not Donald Trump.
I am a super
And what I
fast.
do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who
Well, the
believes
problem is on the Discord
what
stream
is
of this, I
possible,
can
one who
barely
brings
hear
a sense of
anybody. I mean, I can
optimism
hear you guys, but I
about
can't hear
what
the
we
debate.
can do
Thank
instead
you.
of always disparaging
I'll see if I
the
can
American people.
up it a little.
I believe in what we can do
How's
to
that?
strengthen our small businesses, which is
Better.
why I have a plan. Let's
I
talk
mean, it's at least
about our
50%
plans.
better, but I mean, it's still.
And let's compare the
Let's
plans.
just say if
I
I
have
was
a
if I was a
plan
little older, I would be
to
wondering
give
if I needed a
startup
cochlear
businesses
implant.
$50,000 tax
So,
deduction
like Trump.
to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work.
I don't know. You got that
I
ear
have a
transplant.
plan,
I mean, take a look at it. Not even a little
$6,000
scar.
for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your
Miraculous
child's
healing.
development. I have a plan that is about
Shard
allowing
of
people
glass.
to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
Wasn't there
That's the
something
kind
years
of
ago about
conversation
the
I believe, David,
Antichrist
that
surviving
people
your
really
headroom?
want tonight,
Just throwing that out there.
as opposed to a conversation that is
No,
constantly
it was
about
a mortal head
belittling
wound. He actually
and
has
name
to die.
calling. Let's
Oh.
turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move
Also, it's
on.
my
President Trump,
understanding that the
Let's turn to
Antichrist
policy,
is
please.
capable and
To
competent.
defund the police, She has a full plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has a plan to not allow fracking in
not to hear him
Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is
I'm
until
not
just
religious,
recently.
but I saw
Lindsey,
the Left Behind movies when I was a
I
kid.
saw those
something
Left
twice
Behind
that I need to
movies.
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're going to
The
move
books
on,
are
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
immensely
President
better.
Trump, this
And
is
by
now
immensely,
your
I
third
mean
time running
at
for
least
president.
readable.
You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known
know.
as
I kinda like
Obamacare.
those
You have
movies. I
failed
thought
to
it was an
accomplish
interesting
that.
thought
You now
exercise,
say
but
you're
then
going to
again,
keep
I was
Obamacare, quote,
10,
unless we can do
12,
something much
so-
better.
Much younger.
Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you
The
have a
novels
plan,
are
and can you tell us what
at
it
least
is?
a little better.
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But
Headline
remember
tomorrow,
this.
Trump says he
I
likes
inherited
Obamacare.
because Democrats wouldn't change it. They
Any
wouldn't vote
headlines
for
are
it.
made tonight.
They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much
This is
better
a pick your
plan
own
than
journey.
Obamacare. But the Democrats
Maga
came up,
Doltia
they
tomorrow.
wouldn't
Well,
vote for it.
actually, we
I had a
always
choice to
liked
make when I was
socialized
president.
healthcare.
Do I save it and make it as good as it can be?
Maga
Never going to be
Doltia in a
great.
couple of years.
Or do
we
I
love
let it rot?
communism.
And I felt I had an
Yes,
obligation,
you have
even
an
though
obligation
politically
to
it would have been
let
good to just
socialized
let it
medicine
rot and
rot.
let it go
As a
away.
Canadian, I say
I
that
decided,
completely.
and I told my
Please
people,
let
the top
socialized
people, and they're
medicine
very
rot.
good people. I have a lot of good people in this
No, you don't. You're an
administration.
idiot.
We read about the bad ones. We had some
Yeah, I
real
remember
bad
my
ones
family and I,
too,
we
and
were
so do
visiting
they.
up
They
in
have really
Vancouver
bad ones. The
a number
difference is
of
they don't
years
get rid of
ago.
them. But let me just
And,
explain.
one of my
I had a
kids
choice to
had an
make.
issue,
Do I save it and make it as
we were-
good as
we
it
were
can be,
faced with
or
the
do I
issue
let it
of,
rot?
going
And I
to a
saved it.
Canadian
I did the
hospital,
right
and it was
thing.
like,
But
you
it's
know,
still never
we were
going to be
visiting some
great,
people
and it's
that,
too expensive for
some friends of
people.
ours that were up in
And
Canada,
what
they
we
were
will
like, honestly,
do
just
is
get
we're
back on your
looking
plane
at
and go
different
back to
plans.
America.
If we
Go
can
back.
come up with a plan that's going to
Don't
cost
come here.
our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do
So
not
just
have
for
a plan.
point of
I
reference,
have concepts of a plan.
just for point
I'm
of
not
reference,
president
health
right
premiums,
now.
monthly
But
health
if
premiums when Obamacare was
we
first
come up with
implemented
something, I
was
would
an
only
average
change
of,
it if we come up with something that's better
$400
and
a
less
month, if I remember
expensive.
correctly.
And there are
And today
concepts
that
and
number is over
options we
2,000.
have
So when
to
he's
do
talking
that.
about,
And you'll be hearing
you know,
about
how
it
good
in the
premiums
not too
were,
distant
they've
future.
Vice President
consistently
Harris,
gone
in
up, especially during his
2017, you supported
presidency.
Bernie Sanders' proposal to
My
do
pa-
away with
my
private
parents'
insurance and create a
insurance
government-run
at least
healthcare
tripled.
system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the
You
continuous
don't own
lying
any
about
real
this
guns.
stuff.
You own vanity pieces.
As it relates to the
Come
Affordable
on.
Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand.
Yeah, somehow I
when
don't think
Donald
she's
Trump
okay
was
with my
president,
50 cal.
60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain,
And I'm
who
sure
you
she'd
have
be mad that I'm building an
disparaged
AR-10.
as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate
reason why I
the
don't like
ability
McCain.
of insurance
Yes,
companies
that's-
to deny people with pre-existing conditions.
Well, remember,
I don't
McCain
have to
wasn't
tell the people
against
watching
getting
tonight. You
rid of
remember
the
what that was
ACA.
like?
He just, wanted
Remember
to show
when an
Trump his
insurance
ass because
company
Trump
could
was such a
deny
piece of shit.
If a child
this
had
would have been-
asthma,
this would have been
if someone was a
killed
breast
had
cancer
Trump
survivor,
just not been
if a
such a
grandparent
fucking
had
dick to
diabetes.
McCain.
And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the
That's a
last
big
4
Trump
years have
problem. He
strengthened the
pissed so many
Affordable
people
Care Act,
off that just
we
wanted
have
to fuck
allowed
him
for the
over.
first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been
Okay, so
vice
that's
president,
actually
we have
incorrect.
capped the
Trump had
cost of
actually
prescription
created the
medication for seniors at
$35 insulin
$2,000 a
program,
year.
and
And when I am president,
Biden's
we will do
first day
that
in
for all
office,
people,
he signed the
understanding
executive order
that
killing
the
it,
value
and
I
then
bring to
passed the
this
exact same bill
is that Access to health care
order so
should
he
be
could
a
claim
right
credit for doing
and not just a privilege of those who can
that's the
afford it.
second of three
And
things
the
Trump did
plan
correctly
has
during
to
his
be
presidency.
to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Fastest
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
She made
of...
a mistake. Number one,
But also, this goes into
John
the larger
McCain
issue
fought
that because,
Obamacare
as
for
we
10
just
years.
talked about, because so many
But it
people
wasn't
just wanted
only
to screw
him.
him
It
over,
was all of the
Trump couldn't
Democrats
govern through
that kept it
legislation. He
going.
had to govern
And you
through
know what?
executive order because he couldn't
We
get
can do
anything
much
through
better
because
than
everybody
Obamacare,
fucking
much
hated his
less
ass.
money.
So
But
the moment
she
he left
won't
office,
improve
it just took
private
executive orders to
insurance
undo
for
everything
people,
he did.
private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money,
This
and they
governing
want to have
by
private.
executive
She wants
order
everybody to
needs
be
to go
on
away.
government
On both
insurance
sides.
where you wait
Chevron-
6 months for an
Thankfully, Chevron
operation that
helped
you
get
need to
rid
be
of that.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water.
I'm not
Vice
interested in
President
this
Harris,
topic.
you
I think
call
I'm gonna
climate
go
change an
do something
existential
else for a
threat.
minute.
The question to you
Gonna go
both tonight
drink.
is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences,
Okay,
who now
so
is either being denied home
climate
insurance or it's
change,
being jacked up. You ask
as they
anybody who
define it,
has
is
been
bullshit.
the
Climate
victim of
change,
what that means in terms of
as
losing
what
their home,
actually
having
happens,
nowhere to
is
go.
real.
We
Our
know that
climate
we
does
can
change
actually
over
deal
time.
with this issue. The young people
But
of
not
America
because
care
of human
deeply about this
interference,
issue.
but because
And I
of
am
the way
proud
our
that as
world
vice
works.
president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy while we
Volcanoes
have
do more to
also
change our climate
increased
than
domestic
humans.
gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of
Cool.
building
Unions
a
like
clean
you.
energy
I hate you
economy
again.
includes
For
investing
those playing
in
the home game,
American-made
he's correct that he cost
products,
manufacturing
American
jobs here, but she's
automobiles.
talking
It
about standing up
includes growing
factories globally,
what we can
which is
do
also
around
true.
American
What she ignores
manufacturing
is
and
that those
opening
factories are
up
being
auto
stood up
plants,
globally,
not
mostly in
closing
India,
them like
because
happened
India
under
is
Donald
burning
Trump.
Vice
so much
President
fucking
Harris,
coal.
thank you.
That didn't
So,
happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they
essentially,
lost
we're funding
10,000 manufacturing
their
jobs
dirty
this
energy
last
efforts
month.
to claim that we're
It's
clean.
going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants
The way
in
it always
Mexico,
works.
in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable.
What do you
But we're
mean,
not going to
these
let
people?
that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've
his
done
entire
to
argument
business
is
and
essentially
manufacturing in
China
this
will make
country
better cars,
is
so we can't
horrible.
have them, which is
We
bullshit.
have
China isn't gonna
nothing
make
because
better cars.
they refuse.
But that's essentially what he's
Biden doesn't
saying
go
is
after
the
people
American,
because supposedly
auto
China
industry
paid him
can't
millions of
compete.
dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why
What
did he
about
get
Mr. Cokie Bear
$3.5 million
Jr.?
from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did he get? Why did
You know,
she
if you've
pay
got a
him
big enough screen, I'm
$3.5
watching this on
million?
130 inches.
This is a crooked
Like,
administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
But the difference between the
We'll be
two
right
of
back
them in
with closing
terms of,
statements
if
from
you
both
look
of
at
our
Trump,
candidates. An
he's
historic
got
night, this ABC
bead of-
News
this
presidential
giant
debate
ball of
from
sweat under
Philadelphia.
his nose and under his fucking
Oh,
lower
yeah,
lip.
he's
Like he's
looking
sweat.
very
And Kamala just looks like she's under a fucking HVAC unit.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after
All
this.
right, I'll mute it. Closing
Good
statements
grief.
ahead. Oh my goodness, this has been a night of, as I said to Reese, and I had a little bit of a typo. I said it is a night of many drinkers. Yes, I'm already like, woo.
Yeah, I'm not
This
one
is
that's of the
strong
belief
shit.
that. I'm not one that's usually of the belief that debates move needles, but if they did, like, and this one might a little because Kamala is such an unknown element. Like, she is there. She has fucking dominated him start to finish on this one.
It has
Like
not
it's
been
not
good
even
for Trump.
This is like when fucking Bush went up against Kerry in 2004, and the moment he said swift boats, like Kerry just lost his shit.
Look, I look at Bush, Clinton, and Big Ears as kind of a gold star of how a debate should go. And this is not it, but it is at least better with the muted mics. But dear Lord, she's getting under his skin and it's showing.
Oh, yeah.
Bets on whether she's going to deliver a knockout punch this round?
I really don't think so because, again,
No.
a good number of people know she's full of shit.
Yeah.
But
she has,
again,
the level was so low that anything that she performed, as long as she wasn't like doing some word salad, which like I'm actually impressed that she has stuck to every single topic. She's like the practice clearly helped her, and she has done an actually decent job of sticking to point, of answering every question, and of trying to keep Trump accountable. Yeah, of course she's made some gaffes, she's made some lies that any decent person can call out, but as far as exceeding expectations, Kamala is the only one that's actually exceeded most of the expectations that like regular normies had for her. Everyone just expected her to not answer.
Yep, there's been zero cackles. She's only gone into word salad like twice, and she has consistently baited Trump into, the things that he hates most, being told that he's not liked, being told that he's disgraceful, being told that he's not important. Like she throws that chum out there, knowing that he will take it, and he takes it every time, and it derails his response every time. Like it's happened 7 or 8 times now, where he's spent his entire response period just arguing against like some little slight dig she made against him.
Oh, like
or
about
his
the
popularity.
rallies or about the vote totals or like everything. He's just taken the bait at every single opportunity, and it's rattled him. And then when he comes to answering, he drones on about the most meaningless, insignificant, trivial things, and won't actually get to the meat and potatoes of the answer, and won't dial down at where Kamala and Biden clearly have issues. And she's been practiced enough, and he's been doing other things during this past few weeks, that she knows where to dial in on him, and he's just completely swimming in circles.
The question is going to be with the normies. Who do they feel reaches them better? And unfortunately, because I don't like either of them, I'm voting down ballot. But I also do think that Kamala is dangerous. But I do think that she is becoming more relatable. And that's bad. Because it will also hurt our down ballot as well.
Yeah, and if we're going to go by the assumption, because, people have only seen Kamala in one debate, right? That one where Tulsi fucking obliterated her. But how many people watched it? How many people remember that 4 years ago? Like they never saw her during the primary season because, again, she was installed, not elected. So if we run on the assumption that normies that are not politicos, that don't follow this stuff pretty closely, that this is really the first time they've seen her, because they don't watch the Daily Wire with all of her word salad bullshit or Venn diagrams or buses.
Here we go.
Like she's gonna come off as impressive to
David
these
Muir
people.
and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris.
Yeah, and those are the winnable votes. And
so I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward.
Would go back.
And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which
In
is why
retrospect,
I
he should
intend
have
to
let Hillary
create
win in
an
2016.
opportunity economy,
Amen.
investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about
We could have had a
giving
Republican in
hardworking
2020
folks
to
a break
recover.
and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's
Coulda, shoulda,
standing in
woulda,
the
and I worked
world
for the
and
North
ensuring
Dakota
that we
State
have the
Party at the time.
respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay?
A shotgun abortion?
And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now
I don't want you for
in
the
you,
next
the
10 or
American
20
people.
years.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
Well, that's the
So
great
she
thing.
just
Whoever
started
wins
by
this
saying
is,
she's going to
4
do
years
this,
from
she's
now,
going
it's
to
gonna
do
be somebody
that, she's going to
different.
do all these
What's
wonderful
coming
things.
next year economically?
Why hasn't she done it?
being the hard
She's
one
been
for
there
this,
for 3.5
and nobody pays
years.
attention
They've
when I
had three
say
and
it.
a half years
Like,
to fix the
bad
border.
shit's coming.
They've had
So
3.5
whoever
years
wins is
to
like
create
the opposite
jobs and all
party's
the
gonna
things we
win
talked
in
about.
2028
Why
anyway.
hasn't she done it?
Oh,
She should
fuck,
leave right now,
I'm
go
seeing
down to that beautiful
the
White
lead
House, go
into
to the
it.
Capitol, get everyone together and do the things
It's
you
gonna
want to
be
do,
a
but you
rough year
haven't done
next
it,
year.
and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do
hate his
things that are
sing-songy
going to
voice.
make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that,
Well,
and within
yeah,
1 year they
no.
were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's
There we
in
go.
serious
He
decline.
finally
We're
said
being
it.
laughed
He
at all
finally
over the
said it.
world. All over
Well,
the
see,
world, they're
that's the
laughed.
thing.
I know
That's
the
such a
leaders
dumb
very
line for
well.
him
They're
because
coming
it can
to see
apply
me. They
double for
call
him.
me.
It's like,
We're
why
laughed
didn't you
at
do any
all
of the
over the
shit you
world.
said
They
you were
don't
going to do?
understand
Like,
what
vice
happened to
president
us as
is
a nation.
largely
We're not a
ceremonial
leader.
position.
We don't have
You
any
exist
idea what's
as, like,
going
a
on.
fair
We
body.
have wars going on in the Middle East.
Oh,
we
I
have
know.
wars
I'm just
going
saying
on
it's about
with
time he said it.
Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because
we're
of
not.
nuclear weapons,
World
the
war.
power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military.
Not drinking
She gave a
anymore.
lot of it away to the Taliban.
I am.
She gave
I'm
it to
not drinking any
Afghanistan.
less.
What these
I'm not
people have
drinking
done
any
to our
less.
country, and maybe toughest of all, is
not gonna
allowing
drink straight from
millions
the
of
bottle.
people to come into our
Make
country.
America
Many of
drunk
them are
again.
criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history
get one
of our
swig from the
country.
bottle.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution
Good.
Center.
That was a rough
I'm
one.
Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world. and
Trump
from
better
all of
hope
us
he
here at
can
ABC
squeeze
News.
out another
Good
debate
night.
and do better.
Woo!
If I'm Kamala, I say no more.
Yep.
Oh, she's
Yeah,
not
no
going
more.
to want to
She's
do
not gonna
any more debates.
She's not going to do anymore.
No, she's never going to do better than she did right here. She won on every fucking point, every minute of this thing.
Yep.
Like, she doesn't need to do another one.
No.
It doesn't
Okay.
matter if she lied her ass off. She won.
Okay,
My-
I'm gonna create a space. Apparently, you're now allowed to create a space from your browser, so I'm gonna try that.
Ooh.
Sweet. Let's get a space going. This, of course, I still look at older debates as the gold standard. I want real debate. I want back and forth, and I want them to stay on topic. But unfortunately, we won't get that anymore.
Okay, jumping on the Twitter.
Okay. I am going to shut down Discord, so I'm gonna shut down the live stream,